We'll call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Councilmember Joe Fickman is absent. Approval of the agenda. 6C, EDA report, will be scratched from the agenda. And then there is a new sheet with an updated schedule of claims on the consent agenda. Any other changes? Council?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with those changes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion
Second.
Motion by Shellen, second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the July 19th, 2023 regular meeting. I'll have them in your packet. Is there any corrections, changes, clarification needed regarding those minutes? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 19th meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Diane. Do I have a second? Chair will second it. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Abstain, yeah.
That's 2 in favor, none against. And 2 abstentions. This now brings us to our public open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes.
Is this on? Okay, just checking. Thank you, council members, for allowing me to speak. I'm asking tonight to review the 25-year restriction that was put on our property. We were asked to remove, restore our shore, so I will summarize what was completed as we have went above and beyond what was asked. We had 2 master gardeners and 1 arborist work with us on the project to assure that everything was done correctly. We put lilacs on the front and east property line. 20 pine trees in the front. We put 50 littler pine trees within our pine thicket in the front for future growth. We put 60 pine trees in the back and along the shoreline. We put 100 perennials by the shore area with mulch covering all areas. We put moss on the actual shore to match what was originally there, and it is thriving. We put a catch basin at the top of the hill as to not have any wash away on the hill down towards the shore. We put in 30 perennials in the front with a small pond for water runoff off of the house so that it doesn't go all the way down to the lake and keep washing. We paid our $6,000 fine immediately after receiving the bill. We completed the sod removal, riprap removal, and sand removal. Everything was done was done 30 days prior to the deadline even though we couldn't start immediately in the spring because there was a snowstorm, so it delayed us 45 days before we could start. We went above and beyond of what it was asked of us with our plantings and removal, so in lieu of our cooperation and going above and beyond, we would like to be considered for the removal of the 25-year restriction and our reimbursement for some of our fines since we did removal and completed it sooner than the deadline, even after starting later than the weather. I also talked to the DNR watershed and the county, so all 3, about the 25-year restriction, and they couldn't believe that that was put in effect and recommended that I should ask to have it taken off. And note that we were fined and had to do removal, plus had a 25-year restriction when the same contractor did the same neighbor's work, who was also fined, but they didn't have to remove, and they didn't have a 25-year restriction either. So that just seems to me like discrimination with us, because how are we any different? But all of our trees and perennials are thriving and growing, and only 8 trees will be replaced in the spring due to not making it, but 8 out of 60 is a pretty good ratio for living trees. I'd like to invite any of you to view what we have accomplished. You're welcome to meet with me at any time and see. Thank you again, council members.
Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
The city was having trouble getting a hold of you on this issue. Were you on vacation in Texas or something? What was going on?
So I had planned a trip. My aunt was dying in Texas, and I had cleared with Sarah beforehand.
Okay.
Well, the day I got the letter, the packet in the mail, I rushed down here and talked to Sarah immediately. And I told her that I was going to be going to Texas to help my aunt that was dying. And I said, I just can't not go. Is there a way that I can extend this? So I mean, I want to work on this. I want to so bad, like get this taken care of, but I physically can't. She's gone now. But anyway, so yeah, she signed off on my paper and said that it was okay, and she put the date on there in which I had to have it into her by it, and I did make that. And in fact, the meeting then was put out like a month or two, I think. I can't remember for sure, but I had it in time, but then it was put out a month or two.
Thank you, Chris.
And
And I appreciate what
Thank
you
you.
did. And I'm sorry about the loss
Thank
of
you.
your aunt.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the council? State your name and address, please.
Name is Tim Peterson. Address is 241 Hendrick Street. This is in regards to the corner at Hendricks and Hickman. Are you going to be discussing this later?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Will we have time to talk about it then, or should I talk about it now?
I would talk about it now.
Okay. First off, I want to find out who sent out the letters about the meeting about this, because all my neighbors received one, but I did not receive one. And this is regarding the trees that are going to be taken down on my property and the corner of my property that it's going to be used for that intersection. So why was I left out on the mailing list is my
Okay.
question.
Vicky, I know,
There was no mailing, everything is in the right of way. All the work that's being done is in the right of way.
right, so there wouldn't be any notification to any of the owners.
There's no assessments or anything. So
No.
there's
If they got a notification, it'd be because of the project that's going on their side
Okay.
of the street, but there was no notification sent
Paul
out for this
Froseth told
intersection.
my wife last night, he said you should have got a letter in the mail from the city council
Mm-mm.
regarding the trees being removed.
Yeah, anything that was within the city right away, there wouldn't be any notification sent out. It'd be just an improvement at the city expense. So we only have to notify people based if there's gonna be an assessment.
Alright.
So,
So my next question is,
no. I don't believe there are any trees that are coming down. We can talk to the engineer about it.
We can talk about later, those trees are not intended. They'll be corner shaped off, but the trees are not intended.
have you looked at it?
Yeah.
Do you realize the roots that are gonna be needing to be cut out?
There may be some root damage on the side, but,
So,
we should be far enough away that, it should be fine. Those trees are far enough away that it's
My question is, if the trees end up dying in the future, is the city going to replace them at the city's cost?
That we'd have to look at that time. As of right now, I wouldn't think so. The only other concern I have is if whether or not you got an underground sprinkler in that corner where we're gonna be cutting that off,
I do.
because that would have to get changed.
And is the city going to reimburse me for the cost of having that moved? They will?
I don't know. That would be up to the property owner to take care of that sprinkler system if it's on our right of way.
Okay.
At their expense.
So you're going to take that 10 feet of my right-of-way away from me. Are you going to move that another 10 feet into my property? Once that corner is taken out, are you going to take another additional 10 feet in from the new road as a city, I don't know what you call it, right-of-way?
Are we gonna take additional right away? No, we're just sort of within the existing right away that we have.
Right.
We're not going onto the property at all. We're just staying within the right away.
Yeah, we won't be adding 10 feet into your property for additional right of way. We'll stay within our right of way on that, so.
So my next question is, the city owns that parkland across the street from me.
Mhm.
Why can't they use that somehow to redo that intersection? Why do you have to use my property is my question.
Basically, that's the four-way stop that made the roads line up right. If we moved everything over, we'd have unwanted curves and safety factor in those three roads now, but that would come in. So we need to keep them as lined up as possible, and this is the easiest way to do it. If we can move it over, then we got a jog and Hickman on both sides, and we'd have to extend the road Hendricks and half a day down farther. And feasibility just wouldn't be there for that to happen. So,
Seems to me that it can be done. I mean, there's enough messed up intersections in this town the way it is. I don't see why you guys can't figure out some way to do that intersection using the city property, which is at Parkland.
and that might come up in the discussion. We might not do it, we might do it, we don't, that's in discussion for tonight, so. But
Okay, so then last year, they put in a new curb on that intersection on my property, which I'm sure I was billed for when we got billed for the new pavement and the curbs. And now you're gonna rip out that brand-new curb. Are you gonna reimburse the landowners for that waste of cost of that curb?
no.
You guys didn't
Because
know
we're
that you were
picking up
gonna
that
redo
cost
intersection
100%.
last year?
We're picking that up 100% on what we do there, so there isn't any assessments. So basically, you'll still have a new curb.
You guys didn't know that you're gonna rip out that corner last year when they
No.
put in a new curb?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council? Our public open forum is now closed. We have no public hearings. We'll go into reports and presentations. Ambulance Department.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here with the second quarter report for the ambulance. For the month of April 2023, we had 24 no loads, 0 ALS transfers, and 20 BLS transfers, with 35 medical calls for a total of 79 runs and activities for the month of April. That compares to 54 from last year and 59 10 years ago for the same month. And of the total 79 reports in April, We billed out 55 calls for 58,392. May, we had 22 no loads, 3 ALS transfers, and 20 BLS transfers, with 43 medical calls for a total of 88 runs and activities. That compares to 93 last year and 52 10 years ago in the same month. And of those 88 calls, we billed out a total of 66 for $77,031. For June, we had 7 no loads, 1 ALS transfer, and 19 BLS transfers, 28 medical calls for a total of 55 runs for the month. And that compares to 79 from last year and 39 from 10 years ago in June. And of those 55 runs, we billed out 48 for a total of $54,002. So we're just shy of $190,000 that we've billed out for the second quarter. And you can see it's all listed, the reasons for the no loads and the transport destinations. So you see what we're responding on and where we're going. Second quarter, we had 1 special detail. It was a Curd Fest standby for the Redhead Creamery. Mutual aid, we did 4 mutual aids from Melrose. 1 was a crash that was canceled. 1 we took a transfer from Melrose Hospital to St. Cloud. We did 1 fire standby for them and 1 medical call. And we did 1 hospital assist where we returned a patient to their residence. I got the ambulance renewed for another 2 years. It's required every 2 years to renew the licenses. So we're good with the state of Minnesota now through 2025. And I did send in the application for our part-time ALS. It was submitted to the MSRB, and I did get a notice late last week that they accepted our application and they're approved it, so to speak, and they're moving forward with the publication of it. And they have to publish it so that if there's any other services in the area that want to have concerns or objections to us going part-time, then they have a chance to voice their concerns and they can work it out with us. And but we have letters of support from Paynesville, Long Prairie, Melrose, and Mayo out of St. Cloud. Not that North doesn't support us, I just didn't ask them for a letter of support. I only needed 3 and I'd already gotten 4, so that's where we stand with the part-time ALS.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Questions?
Did you notice any effect in July that there were ALS opportunities that you weren't able to participate in?
Yeah, we actually get a report from Centricare now because the hospital did a contract with Centricare ALS or EMS that they'll come in and take the ALS transfers till we get our part-time license up and running. So we get a report from Centricare on the number of transfers they came in and took. And it really wasn't that outrageous for the month of, well, I haven't gotten the one for July yet, I guess,
Okay.
since we did it. But even in the months previous to that, if they didn't have a nurse available to go with us, they were calling Centricare already out of Long Prairie or Paynesville. So that's the report we get. So I'll be interested to see in July then how many ALS transfers went out when they didn't have us at all. So be interesting.
Kathy, I was going to ask you if I'm reading this right. You had a crash of a golf cart and 1 crash and 5 kids went to the Children's Hospital in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Is that right?
Yeah, but it wasn't from the golf cart crash.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't understand that. Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
We did have a golf cart crash though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just 1 victim though. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is the golf cart thing, with the crash with that, is that becoming more prevalent with the amount that are out there, or haven't you seen that many?
We haven't seen that many so far, but I wanted to get that documented so we could kind of keep track of the
Yeah.
golf carts because they are
Good.
so much more prevalent around town and
Right.
in the country even. So,
Okay.
I feel like I ask you this question almost every time you're here, but I'm assuming you can always use more friendly, smiling faces to come down and be part of your ambulance crew, is that right? Or how are you doing with staffing?
we have quite a few staff members. I'm actually, excuse me, just interviewed another EMR yesterday, so it'll be on council agenda for 2 weeks down the road to hire another EMR. But yeah, anybody that's interested can always come and talk to me and see where they live and what they'd be available for. And I'm always willing to give people chances.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you,
All right,
Kathy.
thank you.
City engineer report, Keith?
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, the updates, start with the south end, South Industrial Park. Project is basically complete. We do have a warranty issue on one of the lift station pumps that we're working with. There's an electrical issue, we think, with the motor and may need to be replaced, but that's a warranty issue we'll take care of out there. Otherwise, there's a couple minor punch list items that still need to get taken care of, but other than that, it's pretty much buttoned up and complete out there. Second Street project, pretty much nothing's changed since the last update as it relates to scheduling. We are looking at paving kind of end of August, very early September, and then we'll be getting into all of the restoration, redoing the restoration. We really can't do that now, especially with the heat that we've been having, and it just wouldn't grow, so we got to get into the growing season, but that'll be completely redone, all the areas that need it, which are a substantial portion, to get that going and get that growing grass as it's supposed to be. So I know that the residents are concerned about that, and we are as well. It's not really anything you can do from the middle of June till middle of September. It's not when you need to be planting, because otherwise it'd just be weeds again. So, but it will be taken care of, and it is on the schedule to be taken care of for that project. Author's edition, all of the piping is in, the gravel on the streets is in. The curb and gutter actually was just installed and finished today. So the next kind of steps out there will be some additional gravel. Once the curb cures, they'll put additional gravel in the roadway, start backfilling the curb, and then we'll start seeing sidewalk and paving on the first lift of paving on the streets. So those will kind of be the next things you'll see out there. After that, we have, I guess the next item on the agenda will be the consideration of the change order for the intersection improvement. So any questions you have of me?
Questions?
It's still the plan to have everything wrapped up for that first phase, curb gutter and first step paving would be done by the end of this year, September?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And we're well on schedule for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Probably the biggest item left is probably the sidewalk at this point in time. You know, the rest should be fairly quick, but sidewalk will take a little while that's kind of slow, putsy work to get that done.
Okay. Any other questions? On the Second Street project, all the soil that's in the boulevards, even though it's dry, that all met our specifications?
Yep. The soil, it did, yes. So we'll just have to kind of re-grind everything out, and we'll have to, reseed everything in there and make sure it gets watered, and, we'll get into a little cooler weather, and we should get good germination, and hopefully this time we should get the turf that we're expecting and are paying for out there. So it will be taken care of, and it will be acceptable to us as a collective group.
Right.
Before we're not going to let the residents live certainly with what they have at this point.
Yeah. And I only bring that up because we had another project that the soil didn't meet specs. That's the reason why, and
Okay.
it caused a lot of heartburn
Yep.
for everybody on that one, so
Yep.
that's why I asked, so.
Yep. I think there was a lot of weeds in the soil, but in terms of, the soil itself and the organic content and those kinds of things, it's fine. It just, a little bit odd because where it came from was, that was a cropped field, and, they usually use pesticides and those kinds of things that keep those weeds to a minimum, but they sure seem to grow a lot of it. So,
Okay. All right, thank you, Keith. We'll move on to action items. 7A, approve change order number 1, author's edition intersection details.
all right, Mayor. Yeah,
Okay,
I'll just go
that's
through this. So we've talked about this to be a second, and there was a few questions related to this, to this project. Now, one is you have the preliminary design in front of you, I guess on the back of one of your pages here. And you can see that the right-of-way, it's a little hard to see, but there's kind of a dashed line on there. That is the actual platted right-of-way out there. So you do see that we are staying within the city's right-of-way. It was really, if you think about it, it was always intended that this would be the way that it would eventually be. and now is a good time to do it. The reason they weren't coordinated is because the project initially weren't, the one was supposed to be finished, and as you know, we delayed that for a couple different reasons. So we didn't think we really had an opportunity to fit this in. We just happen to have a window of opportunity where we can make these improvements and be able to really kind of meld the projects together so that we aren't paying for additional paving and that for those projects. So that's the reason that it's kind of coming up now. But the intention is this always would happen. There was a question as to whether a different type of intersection could be done, whether we could offset it, say, into the city. Certainly from a safety perspective, we wouldn't think that's a very good idea. You don't like to have those offset intersections. They're really close like that. They're not a safe situation. The only thing I can think of in here that could be a solution would actually be something like a roundabout. Now, there's two issues. One is that would be the first roundabout in Sauk Center, which sometimes causes problems until people get used to them, for one. And two, that would actually require us to actually purchase right away in order to build something like that there. So it would be a more extensive project, and it would require working with residents as it relates to property. So this solution is what it was kind of intended to be in the first place, and works all within the right of way. We will not be taking those trees, as we mentioned earlier. There is a street light out there, the light that's on that corner, and the electric department's already been aware of that, and if you choose to move forward with this tonight, they'll be probably on it tomorrow morning, actually moving that light. You know, it needs to be moved about 10 feet further out in slightly different locations. So that's, you can see it's meant to be a four-way intersection. That'll make it safe for all the traffic. We will, as you know, to the north be having additional traffic as homes start to be sold. And then once we have, phase 2, phase 3, there's just going to be more traffic out in that area. So now is a good time to change that traffic control that we have out through there. So we do have you have the costs in front of you. These are actual bids that came from the contractors, so these can be accepted as an actual change order to the project if you choose to move forward. That amount is $54,928.50. So I think I will stop there and ask if you have any questions on it.
Anyone have any questions?
I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but it kind of addresses what came up at Open Forum. But I recall a similar situation that we just did a couple of years ago with, was it Oak Street, over by the Ding Dong? Mm-hmm. And that was an example of moving an intersection to align with other streets and avoid the issues of traffic that we were having at that time. It didn't make sense to do it on its own prior, but when we were doing, a project at that moment, we have the opportunity to address these issues as they are. I understand the question about the curb and gutter, just getting done with the Hickman Drive. However, I don't even think the author's edition was in discussion when we were discussing doing the improvements, ordering the improvements for Hickman Drive.
Pretty early, that's correct. It was pretty early.
I don't know if we had even made
Very
any
preliminary.
motion. Yeah.
And we're not getting, as the mayor pointed out earlier, there's not going to be additional assessments. So those assessments do not change for that. So that's all going to be the same. We're trying to actually take advantage of be as cost effective as we can so that this change order will include pulling out and redoing the base course, but the wear course will still be the same, which is being done as part of the original project. So we're trying to sneak it in a several-week window here that we have. So that's the reason it kind of came up quickly and came before you last meeting and is in front of you today.
The last question I had, if this gets treated similar to Ash Street, now I'm going back before my time on council, but when Ash Street improvements were ordered, was there an allowance per residence of like $100 per residence for tree planting? Or is there an application to get I somehow remember something in.
There could have been, I don't remember specifically, I don't know, Vicki, if you remember that.
If we did if people wanted to plant a tree on their private property, we would, like we took out a tree
Yeah,
then we would give them an allowance to plant a tree. And a few of them took advantage of it, they're not very many.
so could that be put on the table if there is damage, root damage enough that any tree needs to come down?
Well, that's something certainly the council could entertain in that. I think the other question I failed to mention is, as it relates to the sprinkler systems, our policy is if it's in the public right-of-way, it is the owner's responsibility to salvage if they can and move it out and redo it, you know, if there is maybe a sprinkler head out here. But that has been our policy as we've moved forward through projects.
As far as the tree goes, I think that would be something that we wouldn't act on now. It would be
Sure.
something that would come in the future if there was a need to.
And also kind of, and that just not to pinpoint a certain property owner, but there's sometimes opportunity when we plant the number of trees that we need to be certified as Tree City USA, we could consider right-of-ways at that time, couldn't we? Or do we? Does Ben, he's not here to answer, but
Right.
I don't know if he plants those in public parks mainly, or,
Basically with the
If
number.
they would go toward that, they'd comment toward that.
okay.
And there is, you know, kind of around the corner, there's some boulevard trees, but I believe to the south, there's some open areas that, you know, additional boulevard trees could be planted, I believe.
Nice cottonwood tree.
One of the things that, you know, it's 55,000, say just shy of 55,000 that, you know, wasn't expected to be that high. But talking to Ben, there's like $30,000 to $33,000 difference between the Lakeview Drive project and the actual budget that we set that isn't being used, so we can take that and put it toward this 54,900. So which will bring it down closer to reasonable. Also, talking to Ben, we could take care of the signs. You know, they got
If you wish to
two,
pull them out and do it themselves,
you
that
know,
would
we
save
could,
it.
we've got the signs on, you know, and that would eliminate $2,000. The 24-inch white line epoxy, that painting the intersection, that's something that we can take care of. So that would drop it another $2,550. So, and I don't know if the mobilization that's rock solid. You know, they're basically, I don't know who's doing the mobilization, but
Well,
you're talking a block.
They do have to come back for, like, there's some storm sewer, so they're gone with that kind of equipment, so they do have to come back to do some of that. I did this all-inclusive, so we could back out, you know, like you just mentioned, the painting and the signs, that could be something that we could pull out of here. If Ben
I think if we
wanted to
get
do it.
within, you know, the 10, 15,000, you know, by reducing and using that buffer or that difference in the budget and what the cost of Lakeview is, this is more doable. And we all know that every project that we've ever put off has never came back to the table to get done right. And then when we do it, then we get criticized for, why didn't you do it when the construction crew was there? Now we got to put up with the mess for another year. So,
Unfortunately, the price doesn't come down either.
No.
and the
I'd love-
prices,
I'd love to tell you it might, but
right.
it historically never does.
So in this case, we're kind of either, you know, excuse my language, damned if we do, damned if we don't. So, has the council got any other questions or concerns, or what is the council's wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, and you want to pull out those two? We're in a meeting, I'm sorry, there's no more public comment.
I'd be happy if you got a question afterwards, we can answer.
the street light, where is that going to be moved to?
More kind of in the corner where the radius will be, that's where I'm recommending it go. The electric department kind of will make that final decision,
White
but
line
that's
and
where
the
I've
install
recommended they put it.
That's going to put it almost underneath that tree in that corner. That would be all right.
We can, that's something we can look at and decide. We want it to be as close to the intersection to light it, which is what its purpose is in the first place, so. maybe if there's the right electrical ability to do that. So that's something we can talk to them about.
That'd be, the utilities would
Yep.
be able to say yes or no
Yep.
on that.
Yeah, I don't make those calls, so that's kind of their thing, but I'll talk to them about that.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns from the council? We have a motion to do the intersection, removing the line 21 and line 22
Right,
off of there.
yep.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Shallen. Any other discussion? We'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against.
Thank you.
7B, approve cannabinoid license, Sisters Beer, Wine, and Spirits.
As you know, the council has the ordinance requiring licensing to sell the THC cannabinoid products, and we do have an application and fee by Northdale Oil, which is Sisters Beer, Wine, and Spirits at 321 Main Street North. And as of August 1st, liquor stores can obtain this license to sell. These are the edibles now, we're just talking the edibles, the gummies and the infused drinks. So what we're looking tonight to do is to approve the request for a cannabinoid license to Northdale Oil, Inc., doing business as Sisters Beer, Wine, and Spirits.
Questions, concerns?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Diane to approve the request. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7C, approve EMT advancements.
Kathy Strufert has recommended the following EMT advancements. The first one is Mark Roberg from an EMT B3 to an EMT B4. This is what you receive after 15 years of service.
Wow.
That would be effective on August 6, 2023. And the second recommendation is Cheryl Braun, who is currently a probationary EMT and has satisfied all the requirements, is recommended to go to EMT B1 effective August 15th. So we're looking to approve these advancements as presented.
Questions? Comments? Do I have a motion to approve the advancements?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Shellen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7D, approve pay request number 9, C&L Excavating, Second Street Project.
This is the 9th pay application from C&L Excavating for the 2022 street project. As you know, the original contract, the revised contract is $4.674 million. We have completed to date $3.955, so we're getting down there. We've previously paid $3.739 million, and after we deduct the retainage and the noncompliance charges, we have an amount due of this request of $11,877.03.
Questions? Concerns? The one comment that I got is, you know, if you go through the base bid, line item by line item, a lot of the quantities to date are less than what the contract quantity was called for. But, so there's a few in here that, you know, like number 14, remove structure for storm. The bid was 13 of them. They actually did 17. Where those extra 4 come from? Fire hydrants, contract said 7 removal. They took out 8. I just got a problem when it's something that's that standard sitting there, all these magical numbers are increasing, or doesn't somebody know how to count?
Maybe they
You
took
know.
the fire hydrant out of Melrose.
Well,
You know.
it should have come from the original bid. The
Right.
number should have been provided.
Because if it says 7 fire hydrants to be removed, where'd the 8th one come from?
I will definitely look into that for council and see
Mhm.
if it was missed in the initial count for bid or not, or some other reasons. I will check into that.
Okay. Because when you go through this line item by line item, in which I usually try to do when we get a little closer to the end of the project, then it's kind of like, how did we remove concrete walk of 27, contract said 2720, but they took out 2,848. Well, where'd that extra 130-some feet of sidewalk come from? We're getting billed for it,
Yeah, I'd be curious about
and we
that.
never seen any change orders on it.
Well, I'm just curious if we're getting billed for what they had to replace that was faulty work in the first place.
Well, that's the reason why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
like I said, you know, there's like concrete driveway payment. Contract was 2206. We're getting billed for 2492. That's 220-some yards of concrete, way over what actual bid was. So
Yeah.
where'd we get these extra driveways? And that's, like you said, is that something they're throwing back on because they goofed it up the first time and had to replace it, and now they expect us not to catch this? So Keith, if you want to go through that line item thing and get an explanation why, I'd appreciate that. Is there any other questions about the pay request? If not, do I have a motion to approve the pay request number 9?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Shellen, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Diane. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. 7E, approve purchase of fountain for Sinclair Lewis Park.
As you know, this has been going on for some time, and the park board had done a survey to the residents of the city, and that survey did come back with a recommendation to replace the fountain with a boy-girl statue, and there was a combination of a fiberglass or a brass or bronze, but the
Bronze,
fiberglass
yeah.
had a higher, painted fiberglass replica received more votes. And so we did find a fiberglass replica that we can purchase. I have a photo in here of what it may look like, but this is the bronze one. And we got the shipping costs, so the statue was $1,800, the shipping is $850, and we have volunteer to paint it, the same person that painted the original up here in the front of the office. So the cost for the painting, of course, would be, they are going to be donated. So what we're looking for is to authorize the purchase of the fiberglass replica statue, if that's the direction that we're going to go, so we can get this on order, so we can have it ready to install in the spring, unless you are going to go another direction, put it that way.
Comments? Questions? I know this is something that's been a discussion for a long time on what we want to do and whatever, and
Keeps coming back
I
until
know.
we
it keeps
resolve it.
coming back, and it's kind of like one of those things that I think we might just have to, this might be the cheapest way of getting something up there and keep the people happy that want to see it, but
And if anything happens, then we have record of what type of material doesn't work for us in the future.
True.
You know?
Right.
yeah. So, if there's no other comments, do I have a motion to authorize the purchase?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Shellen. Do I
I'll
have-
second.
Second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7F, approve resolution 2023-45, amending prior resolution, Olmshank.
So what this is on February 1st of 2023, the council passed Resolution 2023-13, which is the one that's in your packet, with the highlight on the second page, where the condition of approval that was no building or zoning permits could be obtained for 25 years for accessory structures to be located between the lake setback, which is 75 feet, and the existing home. The aerial view I have in your packet, I have like 74.5, that's as close as I could get it to do on an aerial shot, and of course, these are somewhat distorted because they are aerial, to kind of give you an idea. The area that we're looking at is between that and the house itself, where no accessory structures could be built. As you know, and Chris spoke to you in open forum, they're requesting that we remove that 25-year restriction. They're stating that, you know, they went above and beyond with their restoration issues, and they're requesting our consideration to remove that stipulation. There's a couple things to consider, you know, you can remove it entirely, you could reduce it if you like. If there's some different condition that you would be comfortable with doing, you can certainly introduce that. But if you do want to take some kind of action, you would just have to adopt a new resolution amending this one or telling us what on this one should be amended.
Questions?
How many other of these permit violations have we ever issued any kind of a 25-year ban?
Well, we've so far only had the two on Lake Shore Drive, similar to this, and the other one, the house was already located 75 feet from the lake, so there was no space to build between there and the house. So it wasn't necessary for that one.
Any other comments?
To me, it's not good. I mean, you're stopping the person from improving their property for 25 years. If they just let it go to seed, it's going to look like the entrance to the city hall down here. It'll look like crap.
Well, the only thing is I just want to remind you, Counselor, you are the one that made the motion to enforce that. So-
Yes, and I'm making the motion now that we take number 5 out of that. I think that's ridiculous, a 25-year ban. That's just not right. It's vindictive. I mean, she paid the fine. She knows she has to have permits to build, and I'm sure any more building, if she does up there, she will have permits. And if it's zoned and ordinances are okay to do it, she can get the permits, but we don't have to punish her for 25 years. That's way too long. So that's my motion, to remove number 5 on that.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? We gotta have a second before we can go into more discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Diane to remove number 5. We have a second by Shallen. Now we can have more discussion.
I understand the importance of the original vote to set a precedence for violating permitting in the hopes that it wouldn't come back to bite them. And I think that was the original intent of setting that 25-year restriction. And also, at the time, the neighbor was working along with the engineers to do what needed to be done before it needed to reach the council level. So it was requiring more time and effort of administration and also council to consider what to do with the property. I think ultimately it led to frustration, which is why it got put in place in the first place. I do think it's a little overreach at 25 years. But at this point, I don't know what the middle ground would be. I mean, they have paid their fine, they have reset it prior to the deadline that we requested, which I honestly didn't know if that would happen because I saw the storms coming in and how late spring was going to be and knew this deadline was on the table. And just to be clear, Chris, you did have an engineer sign off on what we requested because we had that in the request as well, correct? You had an engineer take a look at what was done and sign off on the work that was done that we had requested? Okay.
Sarah's been out there, and one of the things is, talking to Sarah, and like she stated, like Chris stated in the public open forum, they planted a lot of evergreens. Well, our stipulation, even from the engineer, says that they have to be half-inched to 3-inch in diameter at 4 feet tall. According to Sarah, a lot of those trees are probably 2.5 feet tall.
No, they're 8 feet, 8 to 10.
So,
The 16, we're talking the 16 feet, or the 16 trees, because I wrote down 16.
okay, well, 33% of them have to be 3 inches in diameter at 4 feet tall. The rest of them all have to be half-inch to 1 inch. So basically, every tree there can't be less than 4 feet, because how do you measure something when there's nothing there? That's part of the deal. If, for me to go along with this and remove number 25, we have no idea where the ordinary high water mark is anymore because there's been so much restructuring, putting it in, taking it out and everything down there, that I'm gonna ask that there be a survey done to show where that 75-foot line is, so nothing gets built over it or within that 75 feet at their expense.
Would that be something, though, that if they would file a building permit, would have to be done at that time anyway, or?
No,
Or
not
that a variance
necessarily.
would not be allowed, because
Right.
you could also at that time request a variance, so, with no variance requests.
But as of right now, we have no idea where that 75 is. So if there is anything they plan to put in there and they come in and get a permit, okay, are they outside the 75 or are they over it by 5 feet? You know, we're discussing. That's one of the requirements, I think, if we're gonna look the other way. I just don't feel that with that conservation easement in there, it's not affecting them. Having this extra, it's not gonna affect them that much. It's not gonna affect their property value, mainly because the next owner's gonna get, if they do sell, is gonna end up with that same 75-foot conservation easement.
Well, and I think the point of that natural, shoreline retainage, the intent was to keep it from running into the lake. We see the shelves around the lake that stuff is just falling off. So is there a way that we can verify that over a course of time that there can't be an accessory structure built until we can verify an appropriate amount of time has been there or has lasted without, further disintegration of their shoreline on that property?
Because we've also got it in here that we will visit their property twice a year to make sure those trees don't die and that they're replanted and everything. That's all in there too.
So if that's in there, then how do we, but what do we do if they do build an accessory structure within a certain amount of time and that is, falling away?
I just think it's very hard for planning and zoning to figure out where, if they don't know where the exact 75-foot line is, how can they come in and ask for a permit to build something next to their house?
Oh, if it's surveyed, they know.
If it's surveyed for
Yeah.
the 75, but if we don't include it, which as of right now, it's not in the motion, then planning and zoning is guessing.
Well, what I will do is I'll amend that to remove number 5, but that they have to have a survey done on it.
And it's, and it's,
So that we know.
yeah,
And I think that's fair.
okay. Is that okay with, Shallon, you seconded it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so is that okay with you? Do you still want to second it?
Can I
or-
clarify? You just mean, you just want a survey to verify the 75-foot setback?
That is
That it's
correct.
remained unchanged?
From the ordinary high
So you're not
water
talking a
mark?
full-blown survey, just have the surveyor come out and stake that new 75 feet?
Exactly.
So that way, in case planning and zoning has to do a permit,
Question though, Warren, are you wanting that done
before they ever ask for a permit
before we
to do
take this
anything.
off of here or before there's a permit issued to build? Like before we take off this number 5, are you wanting the survey to be done? Or are you wanting that before they come in to get a permit or what?
We got to know where that line is. And if they have a plan in the future to do any structure of any point in the backyard, they got to come in to get a permit. Well, I don't want planning and zoning having to figure out, okay, is it over the flat line or is it outside the line? They're more likely know where their side setbacks are, but they have, and they got to stay 6 feet away from there. So depending, that all comes into play, and I don't want to have planning and zoning to have to sit there and
No, of course not.
So
flip
you're saying
cards.
to accompany the application for a permit, you need to have a survey verification?
That's exactly
So
what
not
I'm
like
saying,
tomorrow,
yeah. Right.
but in a few years, that would, to get a permit, you'd have to accompany that with some kind of a survey or verification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if they do it now and then don't do something for 10 years, you know,
Yeah.
stake's going to be gone.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
And the one thing is, you know, everything that she stated that they did in the front, that was on their own. We didn't request any of that. So
Now, does this,
why should we shouldn't even consider that.
I looked at what she did in the front, and she's got a lot of artistic talent. It
That
looks very
had
nice.
nothing to do with
No,
what
I know,
was
but I-
back.
but I
So to me, it's moot point.
Yeah, but she does have a lot of artistic talent, and I don't want to see that stifled either.
do we, is that recorded on the property where if they do sell in the future, is that carried over to any future property owner? They must survey the 75 feet before applying for an accessory permit behind the house.
Because the conservation easement goes to the next owner too.
Yep.
Okay.
So if there's only actually 20 feet between the house and that 75-foot line, I don't know what, you're gonna be pretty cramped unless you attach it to the house.
Well, the other thing
'Cause
too
there
is,
isn't that much room back there. This is a aerial view and they're not accurate, but, you know, you maybe have 25 feet. So anything that's gonna be over 25 feet there is not going to be allowed.
they also have a patio on the back of this house. Now, what if from the rising and falling, of the earth, that cracks, and they need to replace that or that?
You need a permit to replace concrete.
But she can't do that with this 25-year ban. And if somebody gets hurt, do they sue the city?
No. This,
If it was existing.
this was an accessory structure, I thought,
Okay.
I thought is what we were discussing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Let's vote on it.
Any other discussion or concerns? We got a motion and a second to remove number 5, but then if any permits come in, any requested permits
For an accessory
for an
structure?
accessory structure, they have to have a survey showing us where the 75.
Yes,
And the other thing is I know Sarah's been out there, but it is in here that they need to have an engineer sign off on what they've done to make sure it's correct. And I haven't heard anything that that's been done yet. So Sarah's not an engineer, but we required it. So I think that's basically where we're standing. So what's the council's wishes?
I was asking, do you have an opinion of, like, before I have Keith go out there, how established you want it to be before we send Keith out there to look at it, or an engineer from the firm?
That's Keith has seen how stable the ground is and stuff like that, and whether it meets the guidelines. If we pull number 5, we pull number 5, but everything else better be met. If half the trees aren't 4 feet tall, you can't measure a ½ inch to 1 inch if you don't have 4-foot tall trees.
you're gonna.
And that's what was in the request. So we're splitting straws.
I know.
And to me, we're not a parole board where we forgive all penalties
Well, they
because
paid
of,
They paid the penalty.
yeah, I know, but there's still guidelines here that need to be met.
I know.
And just because of good behavior doesn't mean you get off on it. So what's the council's wishes? We have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand what the motion is?
Yeah.
Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries 3 in favor, 1 against. Moving on, unfinished business. 416 North Oak Street, parking lot lights, Centricare.
Okay, so the residents of 416 North Oak Street have requested that something be done about the light shining into their windows as a result of the new parking lot / driveway construction for the nursing home addition at Centricare. They feel that this lighting issue should have been addressed at the time that the project was approved. They previously addressed the council on this issue with suggestions of shrubs, a privacy fence, or relocation of the drive. And fences are currently not allowed in the front yard. I don't know how you want to handle that. Shrubbery cannot be in the boulevard due to sightline issues. Plantings on the Centricare side of the road would not solve the issue because it's the lights from the driveway that are causing the problem. An option would be to plant shrubs on the back of the sidewalk on the owner's side. That could be an option, or maybe a privacy panel that's not a complete 6-foot tall one. But you can see, as I've shown in there, that red arrow, the lights, people leaving the nursing home, the lights go straight into their home. And so their feeling is we didn't address it at the time that the site was approved, and they feel we have some culpability because of that. Also because we own the property that Centricare is located on. So I wanted to bring that to the council to address that, because they have called on several occasions, and we kind of have a little hit and miss of what we're going to do up there. So I think we just need to resolve it once and for all and give them some closure, and us as well. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
Comments, concerns?
There are other exits to that parking lot?
Pardon me?
Are there other exits to that parking lot?
There's one next to the heliport on the north end going out of, there's two exits,
Okay.
one right by the clinic and one by the heliport going north onto Fifth Street. Then you come down into the lot, then there's like a rain garden area in the middle, and so this is kind of separate from that.
Maybe they should just close that entrance off, then you don't have the cars shining their headlights into our bedroom windows. That would drive anybody nuts.
There's still, well, if they closed it off, they'd probably end up with parking stalls there anyway, I'm
Right.
pretty sure.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have their lights shining all night.
The one thing
I don't
that we looked at that, or I was up there today and looked at it, and Vicky's idea of just like a 4-foot panel.
Would that be
behind-
enough?
Behind, 4 foot high, 6 feet wide. Then it's for, it doesn't violate our no fence in the front yard ordinance. And if we put shrubbery there, then we just increase the maintenance for the property owner. Where this way, if we just put a single 6-foot wide panel there to block the headlights from going through, that would be the way to solve the problem.
Are they okay with that?
We haven't talked to them, we got to
I
discuss it
would
here
want
first.
to, if you just give us a couple options, say you're okay with A or B, and I talk with them, and we come up with a plan that's
Yeah.
feasible, so we can proceed with it.
Were there any
I mean-
specific requests, that the homeowner had to,
He wanted us to put the shrubs across the road, but it's the driveway. And I think he seemed amenable to like shrubbery or something on his, like an arborvitae type hedge or something to that effect. I don't know what would be the best thing to put there, but I didn't want to spend a lot of time and effort on his or our part until I brought it to the council to say, okay, are you okay with us working with him and coming up with a solution of A or B? Maybe it's a small panel fence, or maybe it's some shrubs, and if he agrees and we can do it, we'll just do it. And if not, well, then I guess that's what it is.
One of the things is with the shrubs, yeah, that's what he suggested, but is that eventually gonna be to the point where, hey, you guys planted them, take care of them?
Well,
Well, we'd have to have an agreement.
We'd have to have that in agreement, but where, to me, just a vinyl would last, a vinyl section fence would be just fine.
yeah?
They're not gonna see that direction either way, if you put shrubs up or if you see a 6-foot wide panel there. They're not gonna look out the window and see anything either way. So, to me, it'd be just easier and it'd look more aesthetic if you just put that panel up.
let's put a panel out on the boulevard?
No, we couldn't be on the boulevard, it'd have to be on, just behind the sidewalk.
Okay. Yeah, I think a panel would make the most sense, maintenance-wise and possibly even cost-wise, but then, if there is a option for Plan B, that the agreement that they would maintain would be
Yeah,
included
yeah.
for shrubbery.
Well, if you're okay with me just proceeding with meeting with them then and getting some ideas, and I'll do that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think so.
Yep.
General consensus, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
New business, set date for preliminary budget workshop.
Right, so the budget worksheets have gone out to all the department heads. I've actually asked them to be back to me on the 11th, actually on the 10th, so I can hopefully turn them around for the finance committee on the 11th. And then we'll work on it in the next week or so, and we'll meet with the finance committee, and then send that out to the council for a meeting, and that's what we want to pick as the budget workshop meeting. And then we would adopt it in September. There's 2 meetings in September, the 6th or the 20th, that would be options for adopting that preliminary budget. So if you want to stick with Wednesdays, we've got August 30th. We could meet at like 5 o'clock or something. We don't have Joe here to ask him for sure, but that's an option. I
I
don't
would
think
think-
school's not in session yet, so sports aren't quite the hindrance on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So,
Right.
if you want to look at your calendars quick, or else I can send out a survey amongst you that
I'm
you can chime in on.
I don't have my phone with me tonight,
was gonna
so
say
I
the
can't
survey
look at my
might be a-
calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For me, that whole week would be open.
Yeah, me too, whenever it is,
Of the-
doesn't matter.
should we do a survey with Joe?
Is that
and then I have
okay?
a chance to look at my.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think that would be,
Should we kind of look at that week, and I'll just send something out to
Sure.
see what
Yeah.
works for everybody? Okay, that works.
The week of the 27th.
Okay,
So check your emails.
that's the 27th of August?
Yes,
Okay. Got it.
that's the week of. It
Yep.
could be any time during that day,
Yeah,
depending
yeah,
on
no,
what we got.
I'll
but,
keep it open, thank you.
Yeah, because we have to have it by the 6th.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have no choice.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Okay, that's
have to have it by the 6th, it's the 6th or 20th on here.
6th or the 20th, but I don't like
Right,
the more discussion we can. I
Right.
don't want to have our backs up against the wall on trying to make a decision on a budget. Because we have no idea what they're going to be coming in with. Plus on the
And we have drop
23rd,
dead deadline for certifying our levy
right?
in September,
okay.
so.
And then we also have union negotiations on the 23rd, so
Got it.
who knows what's going to happen there. Okay, so you'll send out a survey then?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Vicki.
All right. That brings us to our consent agenda. We have schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $151,030.06. Paid claims of $929.42 for a total of $151,959.48. We have Resolution 2023-46, accepting contributions of $134.01 from the Men's Card Playing Group to be allocated to the Senior Center, and $100 donated from Tom and Ann Ranza to be allocated to the Police Department. And on behalf of the city and the council, I want to thank those people for their contribution. Is there any other questions about the consent calendar?
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Diane to approve the consent calendar as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Informational items.
Just that the Tree Memorial Project will be painted here in the coming weeks, so you'll start seeing that go on, and it's actually going to be on the east wall of the Sinclair Lewis Park bathroom. And so that'll be going, and then we'll be getting the leaves put on there in lieu of the in-ground memorials. And then the second thing I had for you was the dog park improvements by the Girl Scouts, and you'll see that improvement project that they presented. They came to the park board, and then this is kind of the written narrative of what they want to do and what they're presenting as they're doing their fundraising. So this is kind of their badge earning project for the Girl Scouts. So that's really really fun to see them, and she makes them come in and like speak. They came in the park board and they spoke, and each of them took a turn at the microphone, and then they came in an additional time and talked to me and went over this proposal. And then they've also met with Ben down at the park about what their proposals are, so we're making them earn that badge.
Yeah.
Any questions? Otherwise, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Shallen. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.